Someone, I'd say about a week ago, maybe more, left a comment on my channel, and it was in German. And what they wanted to, they asked me a question. They wanted me to talk about Minnesota, and because he had family here and he came here to visit, and he said it's real hard for people who aren't from Minnesota to, speak our town names and stuff, and our city names and that kind of thing, because a lot of it's Native American. In fact, the word Minnesota itself is Native American. But I also was going to talk about my accent, the Minnesotan accent, and how it's different than the rest of the American accents and that kind of thing. And I live in southern Minnesota, and I'd say there's three big kind of accents within Minnesota. You have the southern Minnesotan accent, and you have the northern Minnesotan accent, which is more like the Canadian accent. And then you have the Twin Cities accent, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul. They kind of have their own accent. And I think the Minnesotan accent, the reason it's different than most other accents in America is because we have a large influence from the Native American accent, from the Native American population of this area. And most of the people that settled in Minnesota when people started settling this area, most of them are Scandinavians and Germans. Like, for instance, I'm mostly Norwegian, Swedish. I'm also German and Dutch. So you got a lot of Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish, German people in Minnesota. And also French that came down from Canada. So their accents kind of played a role. Like, only in Minnesota will you hear people regularly say "oofda," and that's literally a Norwegian word. It means like "oh man" or "oh dang." "Oofda." So we say that here in Minnesota, and it's just normal speech. And the Minnesotan accent, like mine, the southern accent, is like pretty much the standard American accent, actually. Like, a lot of the people that they hire in LA and Hollywood to do voiceovers for commercials and I think having a brain fart, for commercials and movie trailers, like previews, they are all from southern Minnesota. Like the top hired ones, or the ones that make the most money, are Minnesotans from southern Minnesota and the Twin Cities. And so kind of the area of northern Iowa, a little bit of Wisconsin, and a little bit of the Dakotas is, I guess, what you'd call the standard American accent. And there's definitely a big difference from other accents in America. Like, you have the southern accents like Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, which are distinctly southern. And Minnesotan is distinctly Minnesotan. It sounds different than all the rest. Then you got the LA accent, the New York accent, and like the Orlando accent, like in Florida. And they're all very, very similar to the Minnesotan accent, because they're more like standard American. Like, people in LA, it's not that easy to tell that they have an accent from Minnesotan, because like everyone in LA, is from different parts of the United States. They all moved there, and that kind of really affected the accent, making it more of a general American accent. Same with Florida. Most people in Florida came from different states, and they all went there. New York, kind of the same story, but they do have a more distinct accent because it's an older city. And when you go on the east coast of the United States, they're going to have more drastically different accents because people have lived there longer than, let's say, the Midwest. But for those of you who are learning English and watching my videos, my accent is pretty close to the standard American accent. So it's pretty good, I guess, to listen to my voice. And other Minnesotans that have YouTube channels too. And I guess the Midwest accent is just the general American one. Like, for instance, Lau Shoes. He's from Ohio, which is pretty much part of the Midwest. And if I met him, let's say in Minneapolis, I would not be able to tell that he was from Ohio. He would sound very similar. And I have family in South Dakota, so I've been to South Dakota a lot. I have family in North Dakota. The accents are very similar, but slightly different. Same with Wisconsin accent and Iowan accent. And the Minnesotan accent too, like I go to northern Minnesota a lot with my father, my dad, because we go fishing and hunting up there a lot. And so I'm pretty familiar with that too. And sometimes if I'm up there long enough, I'll come back home speaking a more northern accent. But like I said, it's more like Canada's. Like, let's see, Steve Kaufman. I'm sure you guys all know who he is if you watch my channel. His accent is really not much different than mine. The Canadian accent is a lot like the Minnesotan accent, and a lot like the northern Minnesotan accent especially. Like, it's only certain words where I can kind of tell he has an accent. And other Canadians too, like when they say about, it sounds more like a boot than about. When I hear Canadians, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I can't do it exactly like they can. And one accent that would probably be a bad one to listen to if you're learning English would probably be the Alaskan accent, or maybe the Louisiana accent, something like that, because I would say it's not that close to the standard American accent, if that's what you're going for, is the American accent. They're quite different. And people will probably look at you a little funny if you visit a different part of the United States. Although, I did meet a guy who was born in Japan, who lived in Louisiana. So he had kind of like a half Japanese, half Louisiana accent. And it was really funny. But it was cool, because you don't see that stuff too often. So as far as like my Minnesota accent goes, it's pretty close to the standard. And I'll talk about some names of our cities and stuff that we have. We have Buffalo as the name of one of our towns. And we have like Minnetonka. And we have a lake called Minnetonka as well. We have a lake, Mille Lacs. Shakopee is a name. A lot of names too, like in Minnesota, are German. A lot of like city names. Like my dad lives in a town called Hamburg, and there's a town called New Germany, and we also have a town named Savage, which has to do with Native Americans. And let's see, we also have a town called St. Bonifacius, which is hard for people to pronounce if they don't know the area or have never been to Minnesota. Minnesota has a lot of kind of weird town names that are hard to pronounce. I can't think of them all, but definitely strange names of towns and cities. We have some too if you go to like the Iron Range, like eastern Minnesota. Some with like Finnish names and Swedish names and stuff too. That can be pretty long sometimes. But I guess that's all for this video.